started. It's time. Look at that. It's 12:02. It's time for the Lunchtime Discovery Series. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Smith. I am your host for the Lunchtime Discovery Series from the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences. This lecture series is brought to you, coordinated and organized by the folks over in the Department of Environmental Quality's Office of Environmental Education. They work with fantastic people to get them on our virtual stage to share their insights and expertise and passions with you. And that's what we're going to do today. And then we use what we've got going over here at the museum in order to broadcast it, bring it to you, and have a good time doing all of the fun learning that we do as part of the Lunchtime Discovery Series. Today's program happens to be a pretty special one because it's not often on the Lunchtime Series that we actually talk about lunch. And that's what we're going to do today, at least in a way. So we've got a big program for you today. You're going to be hearing from lots of voices. So I'm going to get my voice out of this lecture series now. And the first person that I want you to meet, who's going to start our speaking train right now, is Christine Whitmire. Christine is the Organics Recycling Specialist within the Department of Environmental Quality and joins me now. Hi, Christine.
Hey, Chris. Thank you so much for having me today. And again, I'm Christine Whitmire, and I work for the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And at DEQ, we are committed to recovering wasted food to reduce emissions, foster economic growth, and reduce food insecurity. But we can't do that alone. We can't achieve our goals alone. And we recognize the importance of local and regional community groups and stakeholders like Food Waste Solutions and Chef Goff that help drive the conversation locally. And we want to support and amplify these voices because the state can learn valuable lessons from their success stories, and we can share these all across the state. And I've been a volunteer with Food Waste Solutions before. I started at DEQ and have enjoyed a Taste It, Don't Waste It event in the past, which is why I'm really excited to introduce today's first speaker, Gina Smith. Gina is the coordinator for Asheville Buncombe Food Policy Council and a volunteer with Food Waste Solutions.
Thank you so much, Christine. And thank you, Chris. Yes, I'm Gina Smith. I coordinate the Asheville Buncombe Food Policy Council in Asheville, North Carolina. And one of the focus areas of our Food Policy Council for many years has been food waste reduction. And starting in 2017, our Food Policy Council began hosting Food Waste Solutions Summits for all of Western North Carolina. We had one in 2017, one in 2019, and we're about to have another one in November 9th this year. But from those first two summits, our Food Policy Council began coordinating with other members of the community who had attended the summits, and from that developed the Food Waste Solutions WNC group. And this group is made up of local governments, city, county governments, University of North Carolina. There are lots of restaurants, other businesses, nonprofits, just individuals who are really invested in reducing food waste in their communities. So it's an awesome group of people, and we do a lot of activities in Asheville and the surrounding counties as well. I want to first start talking about what food waste is. Obviously, it's food that's thrown away and not eaten. And unfortunately, that happens at our homes. A lot of you probably are familiar with, like, what do you do when you have leftover food after dinner or go out to a restaurant? Hopefully some of you are composting it. Some of it does end up in the garbage a lot of times. This also happens at stores and restaurants on a big scale. This also happens on farms when crops are left in the field because they're damaged or the crop prices are low and they can't be sold. Also happens on the manufacturing scale and with transportation of food, and at grocery stores, because grocery stores, retailers have very specific standards for the color and shape and size of vegetables and fruits that are sold. So some of those cannot be sold to the public because of those standards. So unfortunately, all of that results in about 119 billion pounds of food being wasted every year, according to the USDA, which is a lot of meals, 130 billion meals, worth $408 billion. And I think there are about 334 million people in the United States at this time. So that's a lot of meals that could feed a lot of people. And the sad fact is that somewhere between 30 and 40% of all the food that's produced in the United States is wasted. So why should we care? Well, there are 34 million people in the US who don't have enough food to eat. So all of those wasted meals could be more than feeding those folks. Also, enormous amount of resources are wasted. All the water that's used and the human energy, the time, the fuel that's used in growing the crops, transporting the crops, all of that goes to waste. And ultimately, all of that food that ends up in the landfill turns into greenhouse gases like methane and carbon dioxide that are contributing to climate change. So this is just a little graphic from the Environmental Protection Agency that shows some of the environmental impacts of food waste, like the greenhouse gas emissions. It's kind of sobering to realize that those emissions are equal to 42 coal-fired power plants. That's just incredible to me. There's also the fertilizer, the water and energy consumption that I just mentioned, enough to supply more than 50 million homes, and an area of agricultural land equal to the size of California and New York states. So on a local level, the group that I mentioned, Food Waste Solutions WNC, came together to address those issues in the Western North Carolina region. And we work through working groups. We focus on education, that's engaging with the public to share information about food waste, which is what I'm doing now, restaurants and retailers, which focuses on engaging with our restaurants and grocers in our area. We have composting working group that's very active, access and food justice, and planning for our food waste solutions summits. And this is just, this little food recovery hierarchy is actually an EPA graphic that looks like an upside down pyramid, but we just put our own sort of branding on it. So you can see the different levels of the hierarchy. And at the top is source reduction. So that's the thing that we most want to focus on. Hopefully we could just reduce food waste at its source. Next is using any wasted food or any potentially wasted food to feed people who need food. Next is feeding animals. And I know in our area that happens a lot with the brewery industry. A lot of used grains are fed to animals. I know a lot of grocers also work with farmers to send their produce that's not being sold to feed animals on farms. Next is industrial uses, and then composting. And the very last thing that we want to do with any food that's not being eaten is send it to the landfill. And so, like I mentioned, one of the ways that we try to get the word out and engage folks in this work in Western North Carolina is through our Food Waste Solutions Summit. And this summit is happening November 9th. It's going to be in Asheville at AV Tech Community College Conference Center. And we are now, if any of you have a lot of information you want to share about food waste reduction, we're looking for folks to present at the summit. We also invite everybody to come and attend the summit if you want to. And I think has somebody shared the link to our website? You can register on our website and get more information about the summit on the Food Waste Solutions website, which is wncfoodwaste.org. This is another way that our Food Waste Solutions has engaged with our community to sort of talk about the problem of food waste, and that's distributing information. The Save the Food Asheville campaign was part of a partnership that we had with the National Resources Defense Council. We were part of one of their cohorts a couple of years ago, and we were able to produce some flyers that we were able to put out to the community about different ways that people can reduce food waste at home, like paying attention to the date labels on your food. Some of those can be a little bit misleading. If you see, like on your yogurt, it says it expires at a certain date. That doesn't mean you have to throw it in the garbage on the date that shows up on the label. Sometimes it'll stick around and be just fine for much longer. So reading up on that and learning about it can be helpful in preventing food waste. Also, planning for the store, so you're not buying more than you need. Anything that you do have that is more than what you can use immediately, you can freeze it. And there's lots of information about how to freeze different foods, and composting your food scraps. And as far as composting, that's another cool thing that Food Waste Solutions has been able to partner with city and county governments to make happen in our community, is we now have an awesome food scraps drop-off program. And I think there are 7 or 8 sites now in and around the Asheville area where folks can take their food scraps and drop them off, and then they are used to make compost. This just lists several of the ways that we engage with the community, including our website. We're on social media at WNC Food Waste, our Food Waste Solutions Summits. We also host really fun quarterly networking and education events for the public. We usually meet at breweries or other locations where we do a little presentation about something. The next one we're having is in September, on September 13th, and we're going to be talking about the Food Scraps Drop-Off program, and then walking down to a local brewery and restaurant so folks can have food and network with each other and get updates on what Food Waste Solutions is working on. And every April is Food Waste Reduction Month for both the city of Asheville and for Buncombe County. Those are official. And so all through that month, we do social media campaign. We engage in different ways and have lots of activities. We hand out prizes to folks. And at the end of April, for the last 2 years, we've done a really, really fun event called Taste It, Don't Waste It, the Asheville Chefs Challenge. And in that event, we invite 4 chefs from Asheville, which, as many of you might know, is well known for its awesome restaurants. We invite them to come in and use items that might be thrown in the trash, maybe produce that's not looking so great, things that were left over in their kitchens. We invite them to create special dishes out of that. And then the public is invited to come into this event, and they get to taste everything the chefs have made and vote for their favorite. And it's really proven to be a ton of fun. So there's a photo of our wonky little handmade prize that we give away to the winning chef. The last one we had was in April at Devil's Foot Brewing Company's The Mule Tap Room in Asheville. And for both of the events we've had so far, we had well over 100 people turn out, and we had music, and it was just a lot of fun. And the first year that we held this event, Chef Steven Goff was the champion, and he did participate in both of the events we've held so far. And Steve is really well known in our community for not only being an awesome chef. He owns Tasty Diner, which is a very well-known restaurant in Asheville, but he's also well known for his passion for reducing food waste. So I would like at this point to introduce Chef Steven Goff, who is going to show us some of his tips and tricks for reducing food waste in the kitchen.
And at the moment, it looks like Chef Goff is having a technical snafu with his device, which is unfortunate because we were going to join him right inside the kitchen, I think at his home kitchen, and learn how to prepare some of this stuff. But so we're working on getting Steven back into the program. Gina, can I hit you up with a few questions while we're waiting?
Sure.
Because I'm a little bit curious about Food Waste Solutions. This is a nonprofit organization, for-profit organization? Is it governmental?
No, we're a community coalition of organizations and individuals, and we do operate with a fiscal sponsor, which is a nonprofit, Bountiful Cities in Asheville. But we're really just a group of volunteers who has come together to make things happen.
Okay, fantastic. And how long has Food Waste Solutions been working?
So it started coming together after the very first Food Waste Solutions Summit in 2017. But Christine, I don't remember if you were part of it at that point. I think you probably were. We just started meeting after the first summit, just a whole group of us who were interested in reducing food waste. And at the time, I was not working with the Food Policy Council. I was actually a food writer, a journalist in Asheville. And I was just really interested in the whole movement. And from those meetings, it started to coalesce and it became a cohesive group. And after the second summit, we had some real direction. And that's when we became officially, I think, Food Waste Solutions WNC.
Oh, okay. Fast. Okay, wait a minute. We might have to make a tangent then down this food writing corridor.
No.
No, don't do. Well, because I mean, like the connection seems so interesting to me that food would already be something that you were interested in, thinking about enough to be writing about, and then to now find this cause in reducing food waste, which helps people and the environment. I think that's fascinating.
Well, I do too, actually. But yeah, it's such an important topic. And Asheville's such a huge restaurant town, such a big foodie town, a big farming community. All of Western North Carolina is really focused on its small farms. And so it just seemed very important. So when that group started coming together, when the summit was planned, it was really exciting.
And Christine, from the environmental assistance and customer service side of the Department of Environmental Quality, how does DEQ think about issues like food waste? How do you think about these things?
Yeah, it's definitely a big priority for us. In fact, it's made its way into our most recent strategic plan, and we launched our new Use the Food and See campaign. And then finally, we also dedicated a grant specific for food waste and food recovery projects. The first year was 2023, and then we're about to release the 2024 RFP. And so we're definitely putting our dollars behind these projects that we want to build the infrastructure in the state that it desperately needs. And so it is important for us to, work and learn from these organizations and stakeholders like Food Waste Solutions, because, they're doing the boots on the ground work. And we love to, just see what's going on all across the state. So yeah, it's definitely a priority for us, but we love seeing, boots on the grounds and gathering these stories that we can share out with others. And maybe we can see a, Food Waste Solutions group start off in other parts of the state. I know there's already some other groups, forming here and there, but it's just a great model. And I hope that we can have other coalitions like this all across North Carolina.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good thing. I have to say, it sounds like a good thing that you've got going on, especially when you get such community engagement, right? If you've got restaurants and retailers and members of the general public, when everybody comes together, that's when you can see real change and real movement on important topics like this. How long
Yeah.
has it taken to build those bridges and build those connections, do you think?
I think it's an ongoing process. Definitely
Yeah.
an ongoing process. I feel like every event that we have, we bring in new folks. Every meeting we have, as more people join the working groups, we're getting different perspectives and we're learning new things. I mean, recently I think Christine also has been talking with the WNC Farmers Market about the challenges they're facing. They're trying to tackle food waste at a level that most of us can't even comprehend, with the number of vendors and the amount of produce they have coming through there every single day. And it's a challenge. It's hard. It's hard to find solutions, but together we're much more able to do that.
Yeah, and I
So
can
right
add on
now,
to that,
go ahead,
if you don't mind, Chris. I
please.
think one of the tools that this group uses is there's a Google group, so a listserv that if we do have an event coming on that we think other people would be interested in joining, we can, send that event out through the listserv. So I think that's been a real positive addition to the coordinating everyone. And then also there's a shared Google Drive and shared Google folder where the different working groups can upload their notes and everyone can see them. And that's also where a lot of the documents are for the planning the summit. So it's definitely an art to organize and coordinate, all these people. And I also think the, quarterly meetings are a great, way for us to connect. So every quarter, a different working group hosts the quarterly meeting. As Gina mentioned, there's one in a couple weeks, and I think that's been really nice to see people in person again, and not just over Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So I think, using some of those tools to coordinate and then having those in-person meetings like quarterly in the summit are just really great to keep the conversation moving, and like Gina said, bringing in new people to join those.
That's fantastic stuff. So in the YouTube chat right now, the Office of Environmental Education put the question out to viewers, and I'll verbalize it. That way everybody who's watching, maybe you're interested and can jump in on this conversation too, of how people reduce food waste in their own homes. So how are people who are watching right now who might already be thinking about food waste? What are they doing? And we had some pretty cool answers come in. So we had one viewer who they make weekly meal plans, and then they only purchase what they need. And then if they don't use something, they make sure to compost. We had somebody else say that they put their veggie scraps out for rabbits and other wildlife, or they compost it, which is fun. And feed the buns. And then Kim here gives veggie scraps, I like this, and veggies before they go bad to a neighbor for their goats. Would that we all had neighbors with goats. There would be something eating everything all the time.
That's great.
And then,
sorry.
well, Marty just put into the chat, he said, just turn it all into pickles. Which is a very Marty Wiggins thing to say, I believe. But Gina, you were about to chime in.
I was going to say some of my scraps end up with my chickens, so I turn them into eggs. But but also one of our really active members is Don Poleno, who's a chef, and he runs DJ's Pickles, and he does turn everything into pickles. So why not?
Well, there it is. There you go. So tell me a little bit about the Taste It, Don't Waste It challenge. You said you had a lot of people come out. You've had a lot of chef competitors. What have been some highlights of that particular experience?
The whole thing is just so fun. And really the coolest thing is, like, in Asheville, we hear about these chefs a lot, like when people get excited about the restaurants, and the chefs kind of become celebrities around here. And it's really fun to see what they can do creatively, like to come up with. It's amazing to me. Some of the foods that we've tried at the 2 Taste It, Don't Waste It events that we've had, it is absolutely amazing to see what these people can create, from like carrot tops and like bone crazy things that people just normally don't use for cooking, and really, really delicious, high-end, amazing food. The winner for the past year, and I've told you Steven Goff was the winner our first year. And this year's winner was a chef named Keith Novell, and he did like a whole Asian noodle thing using all kinds of different ingredients to make really flavorful sauces. And yeah, it's just mind-blowing how creative people can be and what you can do with things. Christine,
when you host
sorry, Christine has been to these events too. I'm curious if you have any thoughts.
No, I guess the only thing I could add was one takeaway I remember from the first year was just using all of something. I think it was like maybe all of like a leek or something. I don't know, but it was just really nice to see how to use every part of a vegetable. So that was one just big takeaway, and it is delicious. You can't even tell it was like scraps at one point. And I think that's the important take-home message for this event too, is we can't compost our way out of this problem. We definitely need to have a higher use for these food, and not look at food scraps as garbage. We can look at it as a resource, not only for our soils, but again to nourish our animals and us.
I remember that leek dish, Christina. That was
I'm not crazy.
No, it was a vegan dish that used every single part of the leeks, and it was a chef from Wicked Weed who did that. And it was incredibly delicious. It even used the roots, for something. I don't remember what.
Oh, wow.
But something. Yeah.
That's real. That's fascinating. They even use the roots. I don't know what you would use the roots for, but I'm glad somebody figured it out. Leek roots are so tiny, I feel like, but I'm glad that they figured it out. Let me get you some more stuff that came in from the chat here because there's some more awesome stuff. Brian wrote that he moves prepared food to clear containers so you can see it and not forget about prepared food. So it's not out of sight, out of mind. It's not sitting there waiting, going bad, and not turning into waste. Smart. I know Brian's a smart person. That's a good idea. Michael in the chat said that they take all their food scraps in pizza boxes to the, Christine, guess where? Cary Convenience Center compost bins. Maybe you could give us a 30 seconds or more. We've got some time here about the Cary Convenience Centers. Because that's a cool project that loops into what we're talking about here and this problem of food waste.
Yeah, so I was invited to speak with Cary last summer at their Lunchtime Discovery Series presentation. And the reason why I was invited is because DEQ helped fund their food scrap drop-off in Cary. And it's a beautiful drop-off at the convenience center. And so residents can come and just drop off their fruits and vegetables and even recyclable paper, pizza boxes. And so it's a way that you can compost if you don't have a backyard to do it in, or just want to use that resource instead of do it at home. And that's a really creative way that a lot of local governments are offering. And DEQ, we partner with the North Carolina Composting Council to map all of those drop-offs across the state. And so you can go to the Use the Food and See website and look at our consumer page, and it has our map where it shows all of the food scrap drop-off, compost, and food bank resources in your area. So you can type in your address and see, what food scrap drop-offs are around you. And again, it's just a really unique way for municipalities to divert that waste without having to compost on their site or offer that curbside service yet. Like I said earlier, we're still building out that infrastructure, and so it's a really great way to fill that gap until we can do that. And I do want to mention too, I just found out about Safe Plates. They do a lot of consumer education around food preservation. So if you are interested in how to preserve, pickle, can, freeze, check out Safe Plates and see they're through Cooperative Extension, and they have a really great website on food safety and how to do that so that you can make sure that you can correctly and freeze everything properly.
Excellent stuff. There's a question here. Kim wanted to know what the website was and writes for dropping off food across the state.
Yeah, it's usethefood.nc.gov. And I can put that in our chat on our end.
Yeah, you can drop it here, and that'll give, and then I can drop it into the YouTube chat as well. So we've got there's lots of great ideas here. I love, unfortunately, it doesn't look like Chef Goff is going to make it back. I don't have special insight into what's happened, but something's not working. But it's working out okay because the people who are in this chat right now are delivering all kinds of awesome suggestions for what to do with food waste in your own kitchen, which is kind of why we were having Chef Goff on to begin with. So maybe we're not getting like gourmet chef food, but one of our viewers says that if you cook veggies and don't use them, they freeze them to put in stews or soups. Marty over here from the Office of Environmental Education likes to just type random ingredients into search engines and just see what recipes pop up and then use it all there. And Gina or Christine, either of you ever do that?
I do all the time. Yeah.
Same. All the time.
Yeah, same here. And it's nice to do that with things that I know I need to use up and I'm like maybe sick of making it one way and can brainstorm on how to use it in a different way. So yes.
Although I feel like the proliferance of artificial intelligence on the internet just means that it invents recipes. And I've done that a couple of times, and it may have just been my skill in the kitchen, but I wasn't quite happy with what came out. But hey, I didn't waste it. Okay, Elizabeth puts scraps in the freezer and then throws them into the pot for broth later once they've got a full batch. Let's see here. Rochelle turns older produce into a meal one night a week, or makes things like popsicles, Bloody Mary mix. Oh, okay. Stir fry soups, stuff like that. I'm like, these are awesome ideas. I love that we're all coming together right now. Okay, question for you both. How do you recommend limiting food waste for someone who lives alone? I find that items from the grocery store have too much for me to eat in a timely manner. Any suggestions there on that one, Gina?
Yeah, I mean, the use your freezer idea is the first thing that comes to mind, because I mean, once you get used to, and maybe this person is already doing that, you can't do that with everything, I guess, but you can freeze a lot of things that you wouldn't think you could freeze. Like for one of our quarterly networking events, I did a little presentation that briefly mentioned freezing. You can freeze lettuce. There are ways to freeze lettuce, believe it or not. You can freeze some things and maybe they won't have the same texture as when they're fresh, but you can then use them for something maybe like tomatoes. You can't slice tomatoes after they're frozen, but you can turn them into tomato sauce. So that's the first thing that pops into my mind. It's tough though, cooking for one. I have a large house to feed, but I did live on my own for a while, and I remember that challenge. Do you have any ideas, Christine?
Yeah, I was going to echo what you said about the freezer is your friend. So yeah, and yeah, I think again that's that's where I go to is just maybe making multiple meals and then freezing them for later when I have a busy week. And I did share out a resource from that Safe Plates about storing and freezing produce at home. So I did share that guide in the chat.
There's also
Excellent.
one of our members from the UNCA Dining Services did a presentation once and was talking about how storing things in different parts of the refrigerator can extend their life, their storage life. So that might be helpful too with some foods. Just knowing, and I wish I could remember the resource where she got that information, but knowing where to keep it in the fridge so it'll keep longer. I'm going to Google that now.
Yeah, and that reminds me, buying local food too can sometimes, last longer because it doesn't have to travel as far. So definitely check out your local farmers markets and support our small farms and local farms of North Carolina. I think that could also help reduce it by, eating locally and seasonally.
Excellent suggestions. Uh, Sarah in the chat says that when bananas start going brown, they freeze them and turn them into smoothies using that freezer. Kit Kat in the chat saves seeds and then plants them. Growing your own food, I guess that's a good way to sort of close the loop on some of the issues around food waste.
Yeah,
I grow my own tomatoes and I turn them into tomato sauces because you can use all of them, whether they got spots or not.
Yeah, and I think growing your own food definitely shows you how hard it is to get that food. And I'm more appreciative of what I get from the grocery store or just what I eat because I know kind of the resources and water and land that went into growing it. So I love that tip.
Great stuff. So let me toss y'all some more questions that are coming in to the chat because they've got some good ones here. First up, do you think most grocery stores and bakeries are participating in food recovery programs?
Most, I don't know. um, I think on some level, most food businesses try to participate in food waste reduction in some way, just because it makes economic sense not to waste their resources. I do know a lot of large grocery chains do have some kind of food waste reduction, that they'll take produce that is maybe not perfect to sell, but can be used in something that they can sell in the deli, for example, like their avocados that are kind of not, they'll get a little too squishy, they can turn them into guacamole and sell the guacamole. And I know in our area, there are a lot of grocers who donate their food to Manna Food Bank, like many of them. Ingles is a big donor. Walmart has been a big donor. So, and I think Dollar General is now donating to Manna too, which is awesome. I don't know about how many are actually doing it. As far as bakeries, I personally have worked with some bakeries that do, like they donate their day old bread to nonprofits to use for various purposes, to distribute to the community. Yeah. I don't know. What's your feeling on that, Christine? Do you have a sense of how many people are involved in that?
Yeah, I would say it seems like most are, and I think the challenge is like the logistics, getting the edible food to the food bank in time before, it goes bad. And then from there, packaging and getting it to people. So I think I'll quote someone before. It's not a production issue, it's like a logistics issue. So we're definitely in the United States producing enough food, and we definitely have enough stocks in our grocery stores, but I think we could be more efficient about how we can get that food from point A to B to C.
Absolutely. Another question for you. They write, I'm interested in how individuals can work to address institutional food waste issues. For example, they live near the Western North Carolina Farmers Market and see massive wholesale waste, most of which is usable.
I think being part of a group like this actually is a really good way to work on that problem, because the WNC Farmers Market, we do work with them. They're part of our organization and they are concerned about that. So I don't know, that's my suggestion.
A lot
Yeah,
of go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, I just want to add that I do know that our state farmers markets, some of them do have a inedible food waste compactor program. And so any of the fruits and vegetables that are pre-consumer, meaning they haven't been chopped up or eaten by people yet, they can be thrown into this compactor that then is taken to a compost facility. And again, we need to get more infrastructure so that every state farmers market has access to a compost facility that can take that amount of waste. So in Western North Carolina, there's really one permitted food waste composter in the area, and that's serving all of Western North Carolina. There are others that process their own waste, like on campus, like Warren Wilson College and App State. But again, we do need to build out that infrastructure, and not just compost infrastructure, the food recovery infrastructure as well.
I like that, and I appreciate that. That's something that you were thinking about, and that I suppose DEQ is thinking about as well, because it seems like often when we're talking about solutions to problems like climate change, or in this case, food waste, things like that, a lot of times we start talking about individual responsibility. Like, I need to be composting my food waste in order to make a dent in the problem of, what was it, 109 billion meals or something? I'd have to go back and look at the statistic that you shared, Gina. This massive number 119 billion pounds of food waste, but so much of that is also incumbent on the institutions that are around food that an individual might not necessarily have any sway in or even know anything about, but that are massive national or international systems, but that also have to change and adapt in order to address these problems.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think we need all the help we can get. And in fact, the consumer level, according to an organization called ReFed, consumers do produce the most amount of food waste, but I believe 90% of the emissions to produce the food and get it to that person happen before it gets to the home. So it definitely is all related. And just want to add that point that homeowners, we do need to do better because we produce the most waste. And Gina, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. And there's so many ways that a lot of it's just changing how we think, how changing our habits. And you have to be very intentional to start doing that. But once it becomes sort of a norm, a societal norm, then we can start making a big impact. It's just getting to that point.
Yeah, and I think composting is where recycling was 20 years ago. It's now everyone knows about recycling. We have a bin in every office and hopefully school and curbside accessibility for our residents. So we're hoping to get composting and food recovery where recycling was 20 years ago.
Excellent. That's awesome stuff. Brian wants to know, are there specific policy items that are pushing for funding for these infrastructure items that we can put our voices behind, such as county or state levels?
It is in the draft state budget for our grant program to get more funding. So I'll be following that vote along, hopefully I think this month or September, to see if our department will get additional funding for our grant. So I know we'll definitely put it to good use if we get that approved.
Yeah, and policy is one of the tracks, our programming tracks in our upcoming Food Waste Solutions Summit. So I think folks who are interested in finding about what's going on in policy nationally, as well as at the state and local levels, might want to participate in those conversations. We're hoping to bring some folks in who can shed a little light on what's happening and brainstorm some other ways we can move forward.
Next one for you. Amanda writes, I have heard that places in California offer curbside compost bins that people have to use by law. Have you heard anything about this or think that North Carolina can get there?
Yeah, I can take this one. Yes, I have definitely been following California along. They did pass an organics ban for everyone, so no food is allowed to go in the trash can. And I think I don't know if we'll ever have like a ban, but there are communities already piloting curbside composting, like the city of Durham. So shout out to them. They are already, piloting on a, small neighborhood basis to pick up, food scraps and compostables from the curb. So I think we'll definitely get there, but it's like, the cart before you can't put the cart before the horse. We need a place to take all that material to before we can have these, curbside programs. And secondly, I think Western North Carolina has a very specific challenge with curbside composting because of all the bears. So, how do you, work around that and, what kind of bins do you need? So it definitely will take, a lot of investment from the state and local governments to make that happen. But I think we're already kind of going in that direction. There's a lot of interest, and again, we're really hoping that our grant program will help those municipalities, private businesses, and haulers expand their infrastructure and apply for what they need. Oh, and one last thing, just I would also encourage folks, if you don't have access to any resources like, food recovery or composting, call your local municipality and ask for those, talk to your local leadership, see if that's a possibility.
All right. Well, fantastic stuff. We will go ahead and wrap the program up there. I'll just toss out the Office of Environmental Education shared Steven's winning menu, I think, from his win at the Taste It, Don't Waste It challenge, which was smoked brisket, burnt ends, collard stem kimchi, herb stem chimichurri, pork rind crumb gremolata, and grits made with corn cob stock. Since we've all been sitting here talking about food and not able to go eat our lunches, I think it's about time we wrap it up. And now that I've read all of that, I'm hungry. So we'll go ahead and top off this presentation. So sorry, everybody, that Chef Goff couldn't join us. Maybe we could figure out a way to get that one back and going again soon, because I definitely want to get his expertise and experience, not only with cooking, but also his passion for reducing food waste as well, into the Lunchtime Discovery series for you. We'll figure that one out. We'll get back to you. Gina and Christine, thank you for hanging out and having this awesome chat with me and all of our viewers.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And folks, we will be back here next week with a talk called North Carolina Geology Rocks. Don't miss it. Noon Wednesdays right here at the Museum of Natural Sciences YouTube channel. Come and find us. You can also follow the museum and the Office of Environmental Education on social media. Check out our website so you can get more information about programs and upcoming events just like this one. And hey, go check out what's happening in there. Open up your fridge, give everything a Google, and see what fun stuff you can make and see what ways you can reduce food waste in your own homes and in your community as well. Until next time, everybody, be kind. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.